In this video, I'll be talking about something that I haven't heard covered too often, but I think it's important. I genuinely do. Namely, male friendship, its importance, and the relationship of male friendship to the female, specifically the romance-seeking female interloper, as it were. Well, there are a couple of things I want to cover. The first thing I want to cover is sort of a broad, rough definition of what constitutes male friendship. And I like to think, in my experience, well, first off, let me say off the record, my close people in my life are my male friends. I dare say they've certainly done more for me than in terms of when I was, down the dumps or going through some rough patches, than any female ever, uh, likely including my mother. So, and I think that is the defining characteristic of male friendship, the fact that we men value each other uh, for our personhood. And I think in general, excluding a professional setting where you need to have a skill set, most males I know, my closest friends, value you, the fellow man, as a person, and attribute value and worth to you as a person, as opposed to what you can do for that guy. And I think it's a very important thing, male friendship. Now, a lot of people are reluctant to talk about it because, they don't want to be seen. I'm sure I'll get name called here. I'm gay or I'm a faggot or something like that. I'm not talking about anything beyond uh, male, well, brotherly love, as it were. And it's an important thing to have in life. And women are an incredibly destructive force on that brotherhood, on that friendship. And there are many ways they do it. But let's just go through some examples to begin with. And you all know the story in relationships or marriage or what have you, that the of the jealous wife. I'll take my previous relationship, my most recent past relationship, once again as an example. Needless to say, for some measure of time, it was long distance, and I was living in London, she was living in New York. And finally had the opportunity when I was this last year, last Christmas, holiday time, to visit to see a friend of mine I hadn't seen, must have been over 8 years. And very good friend of mine. He got me out of a big mess one time, and good guy. And I've known him for over 10 years. And so I said, I discussed it with my then girlfriend that it'd be okay if he crashed at her place for a couple of nights, and she seemed fine with it. Fast forward, uh, he left the house at some point in time, and I was getting the silent treatment for almost a day, and a lot of angry looks. Did I know what happened? No. I had to ask. Obviously, it was based on jealousy, I suppose, of some manner or sort, but yeah, she told me that she hadn't wanted him to stay that long and what have you. I said, you sanctioned it. You said it was okay. How can I say no to a guy? My friend happens to have no family, and he has a terminal, not a terminal, but a chronic illness, which, well, might be terminal. How can I say no to someone like that? So, she had some sort of guilt trip thing going on for herself, who knows? And I was giving the silent treatment and lots of angry looks and all sorts of things for the rest of the day, and it persisted essentially for the rest of the holiday. This is a minor example, mind you. Another example, I have a friend, a good friend, who has a friend that is pretty much a mangina, and I have nothing but contempt for this friend of my friend. Every time first off, he's going into his second marriage. He's a fucking idiot, but that's not the point. His first marriage ended in divorce. He's lucky to get away with most of his assets. Well, see if it works a second time. Every time he enters into a new relationship, he starts canceling things. They want to hang out. He starts canceling. And yeah, this is minor stuff as well. But the point I'm stressing here is that females, because of their megalomania, essentially, and females are megalomaniacs at the end of the day. There's no doubt about it. Not everyone, but the vast majority of them. So hopefully no women will come on here and saying, giving me not all women are megalomaniacs or something like that. But you see the pattern here. that the female demands absolute and total attention directed towards her to the exclusion of everything else. If a man values his friendship with another man, she finds that a complete threat, right? Why is it a complete threat? Well, I think there are a couple of reasons why. For one, male friendship tends to be much more certainly it's 1,000 times more grounded and solidified than in case of long-term genuine friendship than any relationship a man could possibly have with a woman. Um, and also, I believe that male friendship is more genuine based on my observations than the vast majority of female friendships. Remember, the female only knows to associate with people, including other women, for whatever reason, which I won't surmise here, uh, based on the desire to exploit the person, or for all sorts of reasons. I mean, the idea of being able to make use of someone else's resources, there are subtle ways. I mean, some women, for example, have friends because they feel that they're physically or more attractive to their female friends. It makes them feel better. So they keep them around as trophies and all sorts of odd, twisted, psycho and psychotic stuff. Having said that, yes, so the female, of course, feels this in a relationship in particular, feels this an intense threat because the female must control the man. Once again, this is the term of manipulation. The female must manipulate the man at all costs. A true male friend who's valued by the pussy slave, as it were, is a threat to that monopoly of power and influence, to be honest. Um, but unfortunately, and this is what I really wanted to talk about, the uh, the sad reality is very often, and Barbaros has talked about this phenomenon on numerous occasions, maybe in different terms, this idea of male on male competition. Or in this case, that because of our addiction to women, we will, I have seen it happen, forfeit long-term important male friendships for the sake of pussy. And it's a sad thing because we all know how those relationships go, and what do you lose at the end of the day? And we've all felt the pressure, I think. It wasn't the first relationship I had been in where I was given shit for, well, being interested in hanging out with my friend and catching up and things like that. Well, there was also another incident about with her way back. I mean, earlier in the stage, and she was angry and gave me the silent treatment because we were sitting at a table in a restaurant, and I wasn't talking directly about the relationship. Rather, I was talking about a good friend of mine who works in the Rhode Island budget office, which I imagine she found boring, but who knows? So they see this as a threat. They see it as a threat to their ability to manipulate and ability to control. It's very clear. And unfortunately, most men cave in my experience. You have flat out manginas who will just automatically cave in. I mean, they're so brainwashed and so driven by their libidos that they can't even recognize what they're doing. And I have nothing but utter contempt for such men. Like this friend of my friend. I don't even know why he remains friends with him, but that's neither here nor there. And you have ones who are kind of on the cusp. I mean, who will feel torn. I think in previous lifetimes, that's how I felt. That sometimes when you have this sort of almost moral debate. I promised my friend I hang out with him, or I haven't seen him in a while, but my quote unquote woman wants me to do X, Y, Z, and you feel torn. More often than not, particularly with the path of marriage, you see male friendships disintegrate because the wife demands and usurps and must have all the attention, all the control, and has to have her husband underneath her stiletto iron heel, as it were. And I've seen this happen all the time. And it goes to the point really where the friendship literally disintegrates because it's a lack of attention paid to the friendship. And in some cases, just flat out. I had another friend who was wanted to visit an older friend of his, an old friend of his, and he had recently gotten hitched. This other friend who I don't really know very well, and the wife said, "No, he can't stay here for a couple of days, your friend, because it would be a violation of her privacy. It's 3 or 4 days just to catch up." So, and of course, the friend, the husband caved in, and I don't think he's been talking to that friend very much anymore. So it is extremely dangerous um, in terms of manipulation, but also in terms of what Barbarossa has directly talked about, the sort of male on male competition. You know, when we men are literally tearing each other apart in all manner of ways, and psychologically, physically, otherwise, for the sake of a vagina. And I think if you actually listen to yourself say that out loud, it sounds pretty silly. But this is, I mean, I don't want to necessarily attribute malice to everyone, but I think many women take a perverse pleasure out of watching two men, particularly good friends, tear each other apart in order to get access to her vagina. And this is something that really needs to be stressed more than anything else, that we men, need to present a united front on all men's related issues. We need to not yield to such temptations, particularly temptations of women. We also need to, as Barbarossa said once, never mention race, because I think race is irrelevant. We're all men, Latino, black, Asian, white, whatever. And we just need to look at this from the perspective of men, because all men are in the same boat. We're biologically all in the same boat, and it is a caste system, essentially, and we're all part of the caste system. And most of us are so-called beta males, whatever that means. And so friendship, male friendship, is one of the cornerstones of any healthy male's life, in my opinion. I know I would be vastly, vastly poorer as a human being without my close friends, my close male friends. And in one case, I might thinking might not even be alive, which I won't talk about now. But a friend really saved my ass back then. So, this is something important to think about. Think about just how valuable your male friends are, and think about the fact that your male friends actually, in the vast majority of cases, I would assume, I don't know all your male friends, they probably value you for who you are, not what you can do for them. You know, how many of your male friends are always asking, "Gimme, gimme, gimme, gimme"? Um, you see, the pussy addiction is so destructive on so many levels. It destroys really important social relationships like male friendship, and it destroys the men who are actually involved. And in particular, if you're a man who's decided to kick a friendship for the sake of access to a vagina, and the vaginal journey goes south, as it inevitably will, ask yourself what you have left. So I think it should be clear to everyone, every male, that particularly in this day and age, when your woman is demanding, if you have one, you to prioritize her over your friends and to even neglect your friendships, I would say give her the boot, tell her fuck you, or just end the relationship, or I'll do all three of those. Um, because at the end of the day, the woman doesn't give a shit about you, and your male friend most likely will. And remember, it's your male friends who actually care about your personhood. The woman just cares about how much money you're willing to spend for her, how much you can earn, and what you can get her, or maybe all sorts of other superficial things like maybe you give her a good massage or what have you. Who knows? I know my ex, her thing was eating out in fancy and quality restaurants. That was her big shtick. That's what she liked having me do for her. So yeah, I wanted to mention this because I think it is a very important issue, and it's a dynamic that you see over and over and over again. The destruction of male friendship, A, because males tear each other apart in the quest for vagina, and B, because, well, men who are already hitched or in a relationship fear losing access to the vagina, or reprimand, or both, or stress, or all those things on the part of the woman if he actually decides to pay attention and maintain his male friendships. And we all know what happens there. Um, and of course, men who just readily surrender to their women. I've actually in numerous cases put up a fight, and it was a fight with exes on these grounds, and it's always stressful. And the reason being, as I said, is that if you do not yield to their manipulative power, if you do not make them quote unquote number one, they are very resentful and angry. And this is the depraved and exorbitant and exaggerated and just incredible sense of self entitlement that women garner themselves with. And I believe some of them actually believe that. They actually believe they are entitled to these things. It's not just them projecting or trying to convince themselves. They really believe this stuff. And the only way to combat that is, you know, where I grew up in New York City, and I'm sure you all heard this. Remember bros before hoes? You know what, man? People used to say that all the time. And growing up and seeing, watching the world around me, uh, I didn't see too many men actually practicing that, to be honest. But you know what? I think we are aware now. We're very aware of the issues. We know that the odds are stacked against us, and we need to work in unison. We need to work in brotherhood. So I'm saying here, and I'd ask everyone else who's watching this in your life to live up to that statement, bros before hoes, because it is your bros who are gonna actually look after you if you're in deep trouble. They're the ones who actually give a shit about your personhood, and the hoes don't give a fucking rat's ass about you, and they never will. And that's something you always need to bear in mind, just like you need to bear in mind that you should never trust them. So my motto is, or has been for several years now, and now even all the firmer, bros before hoes for life. Take care and thanks for watching.